thing that we forgot to put on the agenda was
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Edinburgh Town Council. It's Monday, August the 4th, 2025. We'll go ahead and do the roll call here. Mr. Bryant.
Here.
Ms. Buck is out tonight. Mr. Piercefield, we'll wait and see. I hadn't heard anything, but we'll say he's out for now. Sherry Sweet here, myself, Mrs. Barrett, her treasurer. John Myers, town manager, and council attorney Dustin Huddleston. Okay. First agenda on the item is the ordinance number 2025-11, the amending ordinance 2025-1, establishing salaries. This is a first reading. Pass it on to Mr. Huddleston.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman and Vice President. This reflects the updates the 77 fund kicks into. So you no longer have a town marshal, we have a town police chief, and so forth with actual officers. So all the salaries and all the titles have been updated for that ordinance. So this is just a reflection. So it's introduction tonight. You can certainly look at it and consider it at the next meeting, which will be Monday, a week from today, to adopt it if you wish. But that's the reason for it. If you need it done sooner, Ron, we could waive the first reading if you want to. It's up to you on your payroll.
well, they get paid this week for having worked August 1st. So since it was abolished August 1st, probably, if you could waive it, it would probably be best.
So you have to have unanimous consent to waive the first reading, so it would require all three of you, and then you can vote to
Okay. Rhonda, did you want to elaborate on the change? And I don't know if Mr. Bryant heard everything. I tried to explain, but what you did in regards to that updating.
Basically, within the current ordinance, it reads deputy marshal, and that has been changed to read police officer. Where it says town marshal, that has been changed to read police chief. Where it says assistant town marshal, that has been changed to read assistant police chief. And so it's basically just only terminology updates. No dollar amounts were changed, just the terminology, just the title.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to waive ordinance number 2025-11 first reading.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Now we'll need to go ahead and actually have the entertain the motion to actually go ahead and pass the ordinance.
Make a motion to pass ordinance number 2025-11.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Next up on the item, we are going to go ahead and officially start with the budget workshop. I believe Mr. Teeters is up first.
Is there a certain order you want me to go in on
Actually, with
these?
the park and rec.
Okay, Park and Rec.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just go over the changes that were made on this, and then if you have any questions, feel free at any point, let me know. The biggest increase you'll see is for the full-time employees. That was an adjusted 4%, plus it was increased for the bringing my salary completely into the Park and Rec budget, whereas last year it was split partially into the cemetery budget as well. And then, yeah, so that's what that's how that figure was come to be. You might notice when you look at it that we're not quite halfway. It doesn't look like, when you look at 2025, that we'll spend all that. Part of that is because we had a full-time maintenance position that wasn't filled for a number of months. And so that opened up some dollars, and that's why that doesn't look completely right as far as being 50% used or so forth. I did take some off of part-time employee wages. The reality with part-time staff is we just can't fill it. So I budget a high number because ideally we would spend all that because we would hire people for those positions. But as of today, if someone came out there today, I'd hire them for a maintenance position because we just can't fill those spots. Unfortunately, part-time employees are just hard to find, especially when it comes to labor-intensive positions. So that's why that number.
Daniel, that you struggle meeting, right?
Yes, maintenance is the hard part. We do get lucky and get some seasonal positions with some kids, but school's about to start this week, so we'll lose some of them, and we get some older gentlemen that do come and mow for us, and they're great, but I can't exactly have them do real physically taxing things. So the struggle's real, but we'll keep fighting it. So hopefully we'll find some people. And so then you see FICA and PERF adjusted accordingly with those increases. Employee insurance, that's a change that Rhonda made, adjustment, I'm sure, based upon what the insurance rates are for this coming year. Office other, that increased because of our new IT contract, what we're paying there, that's to help cover those expenses with the new IT people. Just adjusted, for cost a little bit on uniforms. Then miscellaneous supplies, that's a big number, and this sheet doesn't show it, but miscellaneous supplies for the Park and Rec is actually broke into 4 different categories, and we've had this discussion probably, I don't know, we had it when you were here, Scott, that it, on my spreadsheets, miscellaneous is miscellaneous, programming, landscaping and plants, and then facility things. So like miscellaneous might cover like medical stuff like Centos, Presidium, our background checks, drug tests, just different things that come up. Programming can be the magician that we hired for the 4th of July, or the bounce houses, or the band supplies that we need for those. And then the landscaping is everything from flowers, trees, fertilizer, mulch, those things. And then facilities is any like chemicals, cleaning materials, mats, trash bags, things that it takes to keep our facilities in the shape they are, paint, that kind of thing. But that's broken up. And I have the numbers that I broke that up into, and I'd gladly share it. Do you want me to read those off to you? So miscellaneous for me, when you look at the 429,000, is miscellaneous is 19,000 of that. Programming is 26,000, and that's where I did the increase. That you see that 5,000. That's where I felt the need was to increase there. Plants and landscaping is at 22,500, and facilities is at 17,500. So that's how that is broken up. And then increase on workman's comp, liability, and then I put a little bit more on our lease rental, which is basically our porta pots and our dumpster. So just to accommodate those expenses. So all in all, it's about a 2.5% increase for the complete budget. So I would have loved to put more in it. I just know with SB1 and the things that we're seeing, it didn't seem wise to ask for more. Even the machinery and equipment, I left 35,000, did have 45. I'm still hoping that we can potentially buy a new gator for the Park and Rec this next year, utilizing those funds. That's why I left that in there. But that's where that came from. So, any questions with the Park and Rec budget?
That's very, thank you.
No, I'm good, thank you. You have any questions?
No, I don't.
I always like to remind people too that used to be two budgets. It used to be our buildings and grounds and Park and Rec, and we combined those two a number of years ago. So it's kind of two departments in one budget, which makes me feel a little bit better about the number that's associated with it. All right, what do you? Youth baseball, I didn't change anything on youth baseball. The only adjustment that was made on there is the one for the unemployment. So I don't know what questions you have on this, but this is one of our NRO funds. It's one of those that we spend it if we need it. It helps with our leagues and different expenses that are associated with that and with our tournament stuff. Like our tournaments, when we rent the Ball Diamonds, money for the tournament rental money goes into this fund. And then that's what helps to pay for the salaries of the people that work. So it's one of those budgets that's used as needed. So if we're not playing on a weekend, we're not paying salaries out of it. We're not using as much, diamond dry or chalk, those types of things. So we'll see just with the nature of where things are at the moment that those expenses won't be as much as they could have been. So that's why there's no need to increase this budget any more so than what it is right now. Any questions?
No.
090, okay, this is our youth club and our before and after school program, the budgets that pay for that. The only increase that I put on this is the employee increase, just for wages, just so we can pay a little bit more. We had tremendous success with the pool this year because I say tremendous success based upon what the last couple of years looked like because we were paying higher wages.
Right.
So we need to try to match that with some of the other areas as well. And you don't really want to spare expense when you're working with kids if you can. You can hire quality people to work with our youth. So that's what we're looking at when we put that increase there. That being said, we are looking at our youth club program and our before and after school program and seeing what kind of modifications we need to make to better serve the families that utilize these programs. For instance, our youth club numbers, we've seen them falling, and part of the rationale behind it, not only, we do have declining enrollment and numbers are going down in our community as far as children, but parents want an all-day camp. They don't want a camp that starts at 9 a.m. and they got to pick their kids up at 3, because then they're potentially utilizing someone before our stuff starts and then after. And if they got to do that, they'll just find a program that encapsulates all that. Our hesitancy on doing that in the past is because we have to bring more staff on to be able to do it. Plus, we're going to have to charge more to make that happen. And we never went that route before because our numbers were so good, it didn't justify us exploring it. Well, we're at a place now where our numbers aren't as good as they were. So we need to look at that route, because if we want that program to be viable, we need to make modifications that make sense to the needs of our community. So I say that because if we make that decision, which obviously I'd bring that to the council, because we'd have to change what our fees were that we'd be charging for youth club, and this would be next summer, so we got a little time, so that those fees would pay for the programming that's happening. But that also means that we could be looking at additional appropriations later in the year if we're gonna have higher expenses because we're offering more service with that. So-
What's the average age group on that now,
It's-
Daniel? Does it still vary, or,
Well, it's elementary age, so it's your kindergarten through fifth grade, but
that's what I meant, is it just primarily kindergarten now?
yeah,
or-
it's those lower 3, 4 grades. I don't think we had a single fifth grader this year. Parents, just with the expenses of things, are more prone to let their kids stay home if they can by themselves. We've seen that too, even with our after-school program, where there used to be a waiting list of 20 to 30 kids. We don't typically have a waiting list anymore with that. So
So primarily basically like kindergarten through third, fourth
yes, it's
grade.
definitely younger kids that are utilizing that program.
With the change of the school hours, have you found that more parents have?
I really thought our before school side might go up, which we are a community of procrastinators and school doesn't start till Wednesday, so we could
Yeah.
still have some more show up. But we haven't seen that spike. And the afternoon, whereas I thought Wednesday being an early release day might entice more families to sign up in our after school program. Actually, the time changed enough for the other days, just a little bit, that families are actually a little more okay with kids riding the bus and waiting at home until mom and dad get there. So, we're having these conversations and seeing if there's still a place. I mean, we've still got a healthy enrollment for that, but who knows? I don't know what the future will bring with that program, and I think we have to be willing to be, fluid with it, so that if we don't want to run a program just to run a program. So if it gets to a time where that's not effective, then we'll want to look to see if there's an avenue to better utilize our dollars. Granted, this is NRO, so it's, they're bringing in the money, it's paying for it at this point. But, yep, all right. Any questions on that? All right, concession, is that what we got there?
Yes, it's your original proposal.
I did not bring my original because I
Okay.
thought we were tossing that out with bathwater. So
This-
the original was just last year's, wasn't
I think so.
it? Okay.
Nothing changed.
Yeah, nothing
Okay, I'll
changed.
do that. Thank you.
And I do not have your option B on the screen.
You don't have the
No,
option
I
B
do
on the
not
screen?
have option B on the
Okay, so I had originally, when I turned this in, even, our tournaments are down right now. We're working to get more lined up. We've got, I think, 6 or 7 booked for the fall, which is promising. That's a good thing. We snuck in 3 cricket tournaments. We got one this weekend. If you have never seen cricket played, come on out. I don't promise you that you'll have any idea what's going on after you sit there for a few hours even, but they enjoy it. So we're working on building it back. And so I had initially just left all the budget the same because in my view, I'm thinking if I don't have it, I'm not spending it. And this is an NRO, it's not tax dollars. So I wasn't thinking that I was, but it does kind of give a false impression by leaving it the way it is after I talked with Ms. Barrett about it. So my second proposed budget, I cut $20,000 out of the part-time employee wages and I cut $30,000 out of the supplies, which also ended up cutting $1,530 out of FICA Social Security because of those decreases. Because realistically, we're working on it, but next year's not going to be full. I mean, we will have tournaments and it'll be worthwhile, but it's not going to be solid from start to finish. So we could comfortably, I think, cut this out of there and it would take us more back to, I think, closer to like the 2023 budget almost. And I think that would still be reasonable. And again, if we got in a tight spot later on, we could see. It'd be a great problem if we were making so much money that we had to spend more on inventory and we had to come to you to ask for additional appropriations. But really is a more truthful expectation of what we will need. So, like I said, the other one, we're not going to spend money we don't have. These NROs were not budgeted for years. We didn't have to do budgets, and we never overspent then. We spent what we needed. That's the great thing about NROs is it gives you that opportunity maybe to build up some funds so you can do some extra things. So I'm okay either way. If you want to keep it as it was, or we can make this cut and then it'll be a great news thing if I come back to you sometime next year to say, hey, we're doing better than expected. We are going to need those additional dollars. So
Yeah, I personally think that you ought to go with that option B, and like you said, it'd be a great thing if you need to come back.
yeah.
I agree with that 110%.
So that equates to a 25% cut of that budget.
Council, that's not a deal yet, approved budget.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Anything that would be approved would just have to go to council. The DLGF doesn't even review those budgets that are home ruled, they just have to be approved.
Right. That's great, though, like you said.
Which makes it an easier process and makes
Exactly.
it make even more sense not to do the other one.
I just think it makes more sense to go with that, Daniel. I'm glad you went ahead and brought it up and revised it.
Well, you really thank Rhonda. She
Well, thank
brought
you,
it to me.
Rhonda.
Well, it's just. if we
More realistic.
Have decreased, possibility of decreased income, then we probably should.
It's an honest look at it. I mean, I think that's fine. Okay. Any questions on that? Next, basketball. Basketball has been the same budget for years. We are really blessed utilizing the school, and something the elementary school did this last year, which was wonderful. They got new goals in their elementary school gym that have the crank, which means we no longer have to hang those goals on the rims, which just really made me nervous, to be honest. I mean, they worked, and we never had an issue, but it's just added parts, and you just never know. So, yeah. So I didn't change anything in basketball. We have not spent $6,000. The closest we came close to $5,000 in 2023, and I think that's when I upped it. I think that's when we made the move over to the school, and the school doesn't charge us to use their facility, so we no longer have the rental fees that we had associated with using Whosoever Will's gym back in the day. So, any questions with that? All right, swimming pool. Swimming pool, the only main adjustment I made was I added more for the part-time employee's salary. I think we're going to be close this year. If you look at what our expenses were through June, July should be pretty close to that as well. I don't know, have you pulled those numbers yet? So we're going to be close. So I think this will get us hopefully right where we need to be. So at 10,000, because we did increase the wages there. We increased our hours. We'll see how this goes. This will be our this coming weekend's our first weekend once school has started, and we're weekends only. We do have a pool thing going Friday night, a night swim, and we haven't been able to do one of those in years. And actually, because of doing it the way we're doing it, once school went back in, it gave us the opportunity to use guards and their hours that we wouldn't have had available to us before, because when we were only doing the summer, guards built the right guards built up to too many hours and couldn't stay late, or we didn't have enough that were old enough. So we're just in a good place this year to where we're able to have that program again. So that should be
Did that
fun.
help with the school extend the start date on that? Did that help with having like a few adult?
Yes.
Doing more adult things?
Yeah, we've had our adult swim has been well attended. Our numbers, I shared some with John, but our numbers have been great this year. We've had the best attendance and the best revenue, I think, at least since 2015. So it's been a really good summer. We got a good crew over there, and it just went well. Miscellaneous supplies. This is another one that's broke up into 4 different areas, and I will gladly share that with you if you'd like.
I would like to hear the 4 areas.
Okay, yep, so it's 35,000, they're broke up, miscellaneous is $5,000, which that's like our pool test, anything with our point of sale, those types of expenses. Chemicals is 21,000, and that's where all that 3,000 increase goes to. So it was 18,000 for this last year, I'm bumping it up to 21,000 for next year. That's your chlorine, your acid. Pool equipment, 7,000. So that's if we got to replace, umbrella, chairs, those types of things. And then $2,000 for events that we have there. So that's any type of decor, if we paid a DJ or something to come. Although we've got DJ Chief Little most of the time, so that doesn't cost us anything except for his time. And we usually give him a free pop or a hot dog or something. That seems to make him happy. So he's not even here for me to give a hard time to, but yeah. So that's how that is broken up. Slight increase on our training and instruction. Those costs just keep going up. We do pay for our lifeguards to become Red Cross certified. That's an expense that we took in. We made that decision a couple of years ago when we started having trouble recruiting lifeguards because that was an excuse they had. They didn't want to spend the money on getting certified. So now we pay for that expense. And we have a good partnership with Columbus, actually. They're Jim Lemke, who's their water guy down there. He's the one that does all the training for us. And then just some different cuts down the rest of the way, phone, advertising. All our advertising now is really Facebook. We utilize our website, those types of things. It doesn't make sense for us to run ads for the aquatic center anymore. And if that ever did, we could always pull it out of miscellaneous or something if we needed to. Utilities bumped up a little bit for electric. And got rid of the gas because we don't have gas over there anymore, so we don't need it. We're total electric. Yeah. That water, that utility. We pay a lot for that. I ain't paying attention. But that's long and short of the aquatic center. It's been a good year, so we'll hope that this September, we're hoping we get some good weather on these weekends and we get good attendance. So it helps to justify keeping this going until September.
What was included in that lease and rental? I know that's not a big line.
Oh, that's just the dumpster.
Okay, is that all that is?
Yeah. And it took me till mid through June, I think, to get them to put a dumpster out there this year. So that's why you don't see any money out of it yet.
Okay.
So we were hauling stuff off with a dump truck. No, they had a dumpster out there. They just weren't dumping it. So we were emptying it into a dump truck until they finally put us back on their route. Yeah. Any questions?
Anybody else have any questions?
All right. Well, thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you, Daniel. Up next, Rhonda.
Is cemetery, Mr. Brown.
Thanks. You've been dying to do this, haven't you?
Huh?
You've been dying to do this.
You can tell by my face, I'm sure. Go easy on me. I've been really nervous about this. So first budget I've ever worked with, the first time I've ever been a supervisor. So trying to work through the struggles of learning and picking up pieces of stuff from changes and whatnot. So my budget at home is a lot smaller than this. So these numbers are sometimes staggering to me. So, but anyway, just to get started, as you can tell at the top, obviously from discussed from Daniel earlier, the department split obviously was going to add some cost to the full-time employment numbers. I think we all discussed that back in the winter and talked about it. So that number is pretty obvious there. And then it also increased the FICA, Social Security, PERF, and all those numbers increased also. So with that being said, that part was something I really couldn't do much with. We just had to deal with it. So I think me and Rhonda talked, and I appreciate her and John's help on a lot of this. We tried everything we could to try to offset some of that through the budget. And then employee insurance, it was going to stay this. I'm going to leave it the same just because I have some employees now that are not currently on the plan, but I always want to keep a buffer there in case somebody was to leave and I needed to hire somebody that wanted a family plan or something. I'd like to have the money there if that's okay to leave that as is. That was something we went back and forth a couple of times on talking. I think it's just wiser to leave it as is, and if we don't need it, fine. But if you would like to change that down, I could go down to a lower number on that to cover our current employee situation at the cemetery for next year if it was to stay that way. So I'll leave that up to you and your decisions. But I currently feel comfortable leaving it where it's at, just
Yeah, I
to
did that, yeah.
get through.
I see your point.
Other office supplies, which is miscellaneous, things in the office, paper, ink. We don't do a ton of stuff we do, but we don't use a lot of supplies to do it. So I left that as is because we've been, under that mark consistently for past activity. Last year we was a lot closer than we had been the prior years, but I think we can still stay within that comfortably. I don't foresee any large changes there that would change that number. The gasoline, the next item down there on the budget, is the same as above there. I don't see any reason for that large number at 16,000, considering our past activity, and some of that's been through some spikes in gas prices because of government changes and other issues. So I feel comfortable lowering that down to the $14,000 mark. I think we could still cover that with that, and may even be able to lower that again next year if I see that we get a full year under my belt here and see what we're using on a consistent basis. Maybe even lower that even a little more and still feel safe with it. So
Good job.
I just, like I said, nervous trying to get through it. So I hope all these changes
You're
are
doing a great
good.
job.
Other garage, like Daniel, we have other garage maintenance and repairs and miscellaneous supplies. That was obviously the biggest numbers in our budget. As far as, things that we use other than utilities and stuff that we have to pay continuously through the year, consistently. I kind of, after talking, me and Rhonda and John discussed a lot about this. I think I decided to move those 3 line items over into the Badger Fund to try to offset some of this number at the top that we picked up for employment on full time with the 4% increase, and the other obvious increases through Social Security and stuff. I hope that you agree with that and feel the same way I do, but I think the Badger Fund can sustain that currently with what we're bringing in on a yearly annual basis, and what we currently have in there as a balance. I feel comfortable going through next year with those items being moved over into the Badger Fund, with the total of those 3 together being 26,000 that we could cut back on what we spent in increase in wages. I think that would offset that sum and save us in our budget overall in total percentage of increase or decrease, either or. But I just feel like that was a sound move after discussion, and I agree with it. I know it's a large number, but I think the Badger Fund can sustain that currently, and we can work through it. And with that being said, I moved it. It was 12,000 for other garage, 6,000 for maintenance and repairs, and 8,000 we had for miscellaneous supplies, and all those things for stuff like lawnmower parts, maintenance on trucks, vehicles, things that we have control of that I can cut back on and use less of, hopefully. And if we have a good year in maintenance versus a bad year in maintenance, I wouldn't have to spend near as much out of those line items. As you can see through the past there, it's been a roller coaster of depending on, you never know when you're gonna have a battery, just like your house. You don't know if you're gonna have a lot of breakdowns or problems with your home, so I think that's something that, the numbers wouldn't really grow any higher than that anyway, and they may even be less that need to be taken out of the Badger Fund, so to help offset that. Uniforms, I decided to go up 500 because we've been hovering around right at the 4,500 mark, or even fell short, I think, a little bit. We had to take some money previously to offset that some, so I can bump that up 500 to make sure we cover the Centos and uniforms. The next item down under those three items I just mentioned. Do you have any questions on the movement of the money as far as to the Badger Fund? I didn't think that asked. The next item down, the telephone, kind of left it as is. I'm currently working on trying to figure out how this new IT bill, which, it's not outrageous, but it's a number that I need to deal with. So I'm thinking about, we're going to work with that with some of the offset of it. Where we've been under the 5,000 mark prior, I'm going to take some of that into that to pay some of that IT offset. And then if it goes over that, probably use the Badger Fund to offset it for this year so I can get an accurate number to tack onto the phone bill and telephone bill, our normal telephone expenditures. So if that's something that's okay with you and have your approval, or have any questions about, so. Because I think we're going to go pretty close to that, or maybe a little over with the IT bill. But so I just thought I'd leave that as is.
There's always that option, Stan, because it looks like in your utilities, you may have some money left over in electric.
Yes.
At the end of the year, we could transfer
Yes,
appropriations up there to cover.
that's what I was thinking. Didn't probably say it the right way, but kind of what I've been thinking with the other numbers with the utilities I was getting ready to get to. So, but if you have any questions or good idea, bad idea. So, like I said, I'm new at this. I'm just trying to get through here and explain it the best I can. So, the miscellaneous advertising, like Teeter said, I've done away with that completely just because of the internet. We don't do a lot of advertising, through papers or anything. So I dropped that completely out of the budget. The utilities, as you can tell by past activity, we haven't been anywhere near that 25 mark for a while. So I just, for this year only, I think, until I get more adjusted to this budget, dropped it 1,000 just to be safe, to save some money there. Feel very comfortable with that. The next line item down, the utility gas. We had a meter that was retired at one point that Vectren, when they were in service, had retired it, and there was a misinformation or some dropped information between them and CenterPoint purchasing them, and we didn't get billed for that meter for some time. So I really don't have a super accurate number on that. A really super accurate number on, what that's going to look like this winter when I start picking that bill back up, because it's been such a roller coaster as far back as I look in activity on price, what we paid for when the meter was working. So, and the prices are so much different now than then. So I decided to bump that up to $4,000 just to hopefully cover that increase. If it comes, maybe it won't. I hope it don't, but if it does, decided to raise that due to the billing issues from the retired meter. Water, sewer, we have been pretty consistently climbing up and down around that $4,000 mark. So I went ahead and added 1,000 to that just to make sure I could cover that bill in the future. So building, and then the last item there was the lease rental, which is our Rumpke dumpster. We only have the one out there, and it's been consistently well below the 1,500 mark. So I decided to drop it down to 1,000 just to be safe. I know I can still cover it, but put $500 back into the other items. So, and that pretty much concludes all of our actual budget line items. Tried to, like I said, at the bottom there, you can see the difference in what that brought that number down to by taking those three line items out to offset the wages and increase in full-time employment, so. And I will add that through that full-time employment change, we were having so much trouble with part-time help like Peter. I just could not feel it. People don't want to work part-time anymore. So with that, we have also been, I think, me and Rhonda talked, we were a little under consistent, what we've spent in the past in part-time wages, which comes out of Badger Fund also. So that's going to help us there too. I think we were roughly around 16,000 or so, 17,000 less than last year. So I think that'll offset some of this too, what we're putting into the Badger Fund. So
So the Badger pays for part-time employees. How many part-time employees do you have now?
I currently have, I have that information here. I have two gentlemen mowing,
How many stayed?
two
Two.
mowing. I have one full-time weed eating, one part-time weed eater trimming gentleman, and I have a guy watering through the week, Monday through Friday for the flower fund. Baskets to be put out every year, and then I have a gentleman working Saturday and Sunday, just only Saturday and Sunday. And that's consistently been, we're in the part-time wages end up somewhere around between 47 and 50 a year, roughly, depending on weather, rain, whether they work a lot or they're off a lot, depending. That changes that number some,
So
and the length of the season.
if your part-time wages are around 50,000, it comes out of Badger, correct?
Yes.
And 26, which would be 76. I know Badger's more than that. What else do you pay for with that Badger?
Currently, we pay for lawn care, the spraying, Bucks Lawn Care.
Okay.
So we pay for that out of that, and I know that total was 11,200 for the year for the spraying, for the spring and fall. And it does keep the cemetery looking beautiful and weed-free. We get a lot of compliments on
Yeah, we
that
do.
compared to other cemeteries that don't spray. They have a lot of weed issues, and so I think that's money well spent for sure. But we have I have all that here. Yeah, that would all that. The only thing that's coming out of it currently, other than small emergencies that pop up if we can't cover something in the budget, we've always in the past, if we've had a major issue with a piece of heavy equipment, car engine blow up or transmission go out, that kind of stuff comes out of Badger Fund also through the year, because it's obvious that we don't have money budgeted to cover that. So that's something they've always done in the past there. But I do, right now, currently, part-time wages comes out of that, lawn care treatment, and the line items that I just discussed with you.
That's awesome.
And I'd like to, like I said, I'd like to think that we can control that number, that $26,000 number down and condense that through the year, because we've consistently not used it through the past anyway. So if I can put that in Badger and then spend less and take less out of the Badger Fund, I think that's a win-win for the budget side of it to help out offset full-time wages, and also we'll keep from spending too much out of the Badger Fund also. So
Awesome.
I'm trying to be respectful of that fund and keep it there, because I know they need it for the future. So
And
trying to be very mindful of that. So
with the Badger Fund, not only do we get the quarterly money from the Badger Foundation, the rental house
yes,
was paid for out of the Badger Fund, so the rental income we receive every month goes back into that Badger Fund. So that's, what is that, 13?
it's
Under the month.
15.6 a year. We currently put in, right now we're at $191,600 a year going into the Badger Fund at current. That's with the interest and the rental house going into it. So
Pretty steady at that, isn't it?
mhm.
And one thing that Stan, John, and I discussed just a little bit was later in the year, if we do a new fee schedule. I know a couple things we talked about. Last year, he increased grade prices and opening and closings, but I don't know that we're going to do that yet. But one thing that they do is when somebody transfers a grade, we don't charge anything for that. Say if you've got a grade and sell it to somebody else, they do all the paperwork, and then it has to come about maybe instituting a transfer fee. I think an administrative transfer fee would be very,
Reasonable.
yeah. And on Saturday and after hours, currently you only charge $200. And,
To be there at a
Yes.
service.
yeah, and that doesn't cover overtime. And so, talked about potentially increasing that amount. And then you'd also talk about increasing your concrete, I think.
Yeah, we're currently well under, concrete prices. We lost a concrete supplier that we had used for years, back when Daniel was in charge. And it really, really put a big dent in our budget because of the cost difference in what he was charging to do the work versus what we turn around and have to pay for it now. So we tried to keep that price down, not to pass it on to the end user, the cemetery. So, but I think we're currently at 25 cents a square inch, which is way under what most cemeteries are charging. Some of them are at 55 cents a square inch. So I was thinking about, we'll talk later about this, about going up to 35 cents a square inch. It's not a giant increase, a large increase at one time, and it's something that's not going to make a big difference in the end user price. So people have to pay for it, to have foundations put in and stuff, because I'm trying to keep that cost as low as possible without pushing anything off onto the public, if we can, to help out. So we're trying to be mindful of the situation we're in and the job we do. So just trying to keep costs down as much as possible. And we've had a lot of really good discussions about how we could change that, maybe discuss it more after budget talks and see if we needed to change it at all. And if we do,
We
we've got
did
some
not
pretty
give
good
any estimated revenues to Scott to figure in if we increase that. So, the estimated revenues that he has, like I said, they don't reflect
They
this,
don't
but
reflect.
yeah, but if we did this, it's not a lot, but it would, possibly increase the income, just so revenues a little bit, just to keep, just to try to help cover some of our costs.
I agree.
I think it's, with the changes that were made and stuff, I was kind of happy that we could get it down to this number to try to help out with the budget, because I realize, like you said, we have a tax situation we're dealing with, and trying to cut that number down as low as possible and make sure the Badger Fund's still sustainable and that we can keep it going into the future. Because I realize that's the future of the cemetery once plot sales end and, we run out of revenue coming in. And I know with cremation rates and stuff versus other, options, that number start to change a little bit too, and go in opposite direction. So trying to keep the Badger Fund as secure as we possibly can to try to have future offset to override some of that, so we can keep enough employees out there to keep the cemetery looking as nice as it does and keep it well into the future, I hope. So,
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Good
You
job.
got some good plans, and you did a good job.
well, I had a lot of help. I'd like to thank John and Rhonda and Teeter, helped me a lot, talking to him about the last 5 years. He was very helpful, so I really appreciate all the help. Like I said, I'm shaking here. I'm nervous shaking right now, so I'm not good at microphones and podiums, so.
You did a great job.
But I appreciate all your support and help you all given me through the year up to this point. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Good job. Want to get that in our packet and have, street
Yeah,
department?
Mr. Barnett,
Yes, Mark.
so go easy on him too. He's got actually 3 to present, so.
Correct.
We got employee wages is 4% increase, and then Social Security is 14%, and then PERF is 4%, and then the other two didn't change. Gasoline's 5%. Gasoline prices increase. Depends on a bad winter too, how much gas we use. Then other garage we moved to repairs other and repairs equipment, just to simplify it a little bit. Uniforms stayed the same. Repairs other, that's from other garage, repairs equipment, same thing. Miscellaneous, we did add 10,000 because that is, road salt comes out of that, and prices of that is pretty expensive.
Cost has gone up, and new streets going in at Timbergate, so they're gonna need more salt.
Right.
More road miles. And then, you know, our paint and, you know, asphalt repair, concrete, all that comes out of that. Then professional services stayed the same, telephone stayed the same. Professional conferences, it moved from membership dues. So we just added all that into professional conferences. And then insurance went up 7%. And then general liability went up 8%. Then electric stayed the same. Gas went up a little bit, 14%. And sewer went up 33%. And then street building maintenance stayed the same. Membership dues that got moved. Structures improvements stayed the same. Machinery equipment, it doubled 100%. We've had problems with our machinery a lot, breakdowns.
There's been backhoe, dump truck, the backhoe's been down more
And it's been running.
since I've been here.
And a gravel truck. So backhoe, dump truck, and
Yeah.
a possible gravel truck.
Yeah.
Yes, so our priority right now is looking, he's getting 3 bids or quotes on a gravel
Gravel
truck,
truck.
which would eliminate 2 or 3 people going out, picking up brush and stuff. One person can go out and just pick the stuff up and loads, and they can drive it and just dump it. So it's not taking 2 people, putting it in a chipper or anything like that. Would free up a person to be doing something else.
Yep.
The backhoe, they don't use it for a lot of things.
Mhm. And we could
They just
always-
go out and pick up brush and put it in the dump truck, which a grapple truck would replace doing that. We have a dump truck that's nickel and dimers to death. We're starting to put more money in it than what it's worth. The same thing with the backhoe. Mr. Gerstville and I have talked several times about the backhoe, and, you know, the street department really needs a backhoe. We have 5 in the town right now. Every department has one, for the most part, except the police fire. And park and rec, I don't think you guys have one, do you? Right. So we're looking at the grappler in place of the backhoe.
We've been sharing Bill's water department too, backhoe a lot. It's always been down.
Is,
It's about $100,000 difference, Sean. Right.
I'm sorry, the increase?
Well, the purchase of that, the gravel truck is $250.
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, these are just rough
But
estimates.
it would replace, you wouldn't need a backhoe, you know, is that what you're saying?
Right. Then we have a dump truck that's old.
It's rusty. It's rusting out. Just the salt's been hard on it, yeah.
What year is that one?
I think it's a 1990.
1990. And so we've put, since I've been here, over 20,000.
Oh, I'm certain.
So you need a dump
Paint.
truck and a grappler, what you really need.
Yeah, just through the winter. I mean, we had, that dump truck when, it broke down through the last winter. And, we were down to, you know, 2 dump trucks and 3 small trucks, so, to plow roads.
But talking with Rhonda, we got some ideas that we might be able to move some money around and get one this year and get one next year. We maybe have a small payment on one.
Yeah, because there's other funding, we could use some CCDF, Riverboat, Casino, and money out of his budget. Just, if he doesn't get it this year, then we could possibly encumber some of his budget from this year to next year to help pay. So there's options for other funding. So,
Awesome. Good to know we have those options.
mhm.
And then, other cap that stayed the same, and then, improvements in other buildings stayed the same. I think that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
On the MVH restricted, it's, that's for the roads, it's like $550,000.
Oh, yes, yes, he's got 2 more pages, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Other one, yeah.
I'm sorry, not on the street department page, I apologize.
yes, that's okay. So that's the same as what we had last year.
Stayed the same.
That's like our share of the CCMG, correct? Is that what that,
I'm sure of one.
Is that what you're using it for?
that's typically what
I
it's
believe
used for,
we
when we
pay
get the
half, yeah.
CCMG grants,
Mhm.
our portion that we have to pay. Yeah, and this, Scott, can you kind of describe to them what the MVH restricted is? Because I still am like,
It is restricted, so the town gets motor vehicle highway distribution from the state based on road mileage and things like that. So originally, when that came in, it was all pumped into the motor vehicle highway, fund. Back in I want to say 2018, 2019, something, when roads were getting into worse shape and communities weren't putting money into the roads, they decided to require units to put 50% of their MVH distribution into an MVH restricted fund. And those uses were restricted to infrastructure, maintenance of roads. They had to be used directly for maintaining and upkeeping the roads. So whereas the regular MVH can be used for salaried employees who go out and pick up brush and, things like that, and salt and things like that, the MVH restricted has to be used to improve the roads within your unit. I know we briefly talked about this, but they did pass in the legislation this year. Do you know what your history of it is?
No, October, I believe it comes out.
I just had a meeting on it last week.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if the PACER rating within the town is greater than 6, and there are less than 15% of local highways that are deemed failing, you can change and move 60% of your MVH to your regular MVH fund and 40% to your MVH restricted. So basically, they're saying if your roads are, above a 6, you don't have to put as much money into the restricted, and you can unrestrict some of those funds and just put them into the large vehicle highway. So something to keep in mind that you can't free up. So the funds in MVH can still be used for infrastructure and things like that. So it's just moving them over to a less stringent requirement. So if that applies then, it doesn't start until July 1 of 2026. I don't know why they started at the middle of the year, but as of July 1, if you have a PACER rating that's above 6 and about 50% failing condition, and you're a little bit less than the restricted and a little bit less
for your local roads and streets. I think we just left the budget the same on that, didn't we?
everything's the same.
Because that's where we pay Crossroads
Yep, Crossroads Engineering,
to do what they do with the CCMG
Capital outlays.
and
PACER
any
ratings, and
capital outlays that we might have out of that. That's all he's got there. You guys have any questions for me?
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now you're gonna listen to me babble for a while.
Okay, where do you want us to start?
With the sanitation.
Okay.
The solid waste sanitation budget, it's got a $10,000 decrease in compactor hauling to account for the cost of the monthly heavy trash pickup, because that is within the regular garbage pickup fee that they charge us. The The regular garbage pickup went up 40,000. That's to account for, with Rumpke, we have a yearly increase, our contracted raises each year, and that 40,000 is to cover that increase, plus all of the new homes out at Timbergate to account for that. And then there's one part-timer that takes care of the compactor, and so if there's a $1,000 increase there to account for a possible 4% increase in wages if that's what's approved for salaries at the end of the year. So their budget went up 6.37%, $31,000. So, any questions on that? That one's just kind of a
Easy.
you gotta have it.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next one is the council budget. You'll see an increase in, I don't know, increase in salaries. This is to account for a 4% increase in wages. And also, when we moved an employee from the cemetery into the maintenance position, that employee's wages were split between council, electric, water, and sewer because he does maintenance for all departments. So the council budget did not include appropriations this year to cover those wages. So that's why the increase is larger there, is to account for a fourth of his pay. And that we may have to look later in the year to do some additional appropriations there. I'll wait later till around October, November and look into that. There's also increases in legal services, insurance and promotions, and there are decreases in uniforms, maintenance, repairs, miscellaneous supplies, advertising, membership dues, and capital outlays. One of the increases for the promotions, I know in 2026, that's what our 250 year anniversary for America. So we would like to possibly increase what we spend on fireworks. We typically spend 12,000, so we'd like to bump it to maybe 15, 16, and you're expecting.
Well, and there's a fear too, and we'll see what happens. All fireworks are produced in China, so everything. So depending on what happens with tariffs, every firework company I have talked to won't even quote fireworks until January or February of next year because they want to get as close as they can and see what their expenses are going to be. So at one point they were saying it could be as much as a 50% increase on fireworks, but they really don't know. So there's a chance it could cost $18,000 to get the same $12,000 show we have this year. But unfortunately, we won't know that until January or February when they're willing to actually quote it.
So that's what the $5,000 increase is there. In building repairs, last year we had budgeted $20,000, and we increased that to $45,000 because there's some tuck pointing and concrete repair that needs done on the front of our building. And then the old police station next door, the roof needs some repairs.
What does?
The old police station next door.
Okay.
There's a leak in it's that rubber roof.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have to get some quotes on that and possibly do some repairs there. We took out the other capital outlays of $60,000 and we moved 25 of that up there for the repairs. And then with the legal services, it was increased. We've had a lot of litigation and extra legal fees this year, so just want to increase that to cover what else we might have coming next year. The insurance, workman's comp, and general liability, that's with that new policy we just approved with the increased rates for 25, 26, and we cut miscellaneous supplies by $5,000, and employee insurance went up due to that addition of the maintenance employee, and we allowed 3% increase in. I think that's what we did was added 3% to everybody's employee insurance for next year because we don't have those rates yet. So, overall, it's an 11% increase in the budget for the council. Any questions or comments or thoughts? Okay. Alrighty, and then the next one is the clerk treasurer. In the wages, there's an increase there to account for a 4% increase. The wages, in the clerk treasurer budget, it covers a fourth of my salary and a fourth of 4 other employees' salaries. So that amount there is, covers the 3 ladies in the utility office and the accounts payable and myself, a fourth of it. And then I've also included a little more than 4%. I know, when we hired Emily in 24, she was hired at the lower scale. And as I add more duties to her, just to do merit increases from this year to next year. So, so that's to cover a 4% across the board for next year, if that's what approved, and to cover any added duties that I might add to her. We started her out, I said, at the bottom, and I'm just trying to give her small incremental things as more stuff is added to her plate. The miscellaneous professional services and advertising include increases due to increased cost. And it's an overall 7.99% increase in the budget. Any questions?
I'm sorry, Rhonda, what did you say the miscellaneous professional services was?
It's a variety of things. It's for Baker Tilly, where I pay for accounting services. It could be, I think we're paying some of our IT out of that. It's, and maybe some software. So it's a variety of stuff. And then with advertising, it went up 2,000 because sometimes when, like the fee schedules, you have to advertise the whole thing, and if it's a whole page ad, I know that the last full page ad, it was like $800 per newspaper. So advertising is very expensive. So that's why there was a $2,000 increase in that. Because in 24 we spent $9,500, and our budget this year is only $5,000. So, so that's where that is.
Thank you.
Okay. And then next is the GEO bond, and it's that budget includes the GEO bond payments only. There's no increase or decrease. We just have to include enough in there to pay the amortization schedule amounts. So that's what that one is. The next one's the Shelby County edit. We just did that the same as last year. A lot of times that's used for items. It can be used for any economic development, and we also use it for items related to segregation. So we just left that the same. No increase or decrease on that. The Johnson County edit, that pays, the increase on that is in salaries. There's 2 employees that are paid from that. So there's a 4% increase for their pay. And the employee insurance, it shows like a 12% increase, but that's just adding the additional 3%. And I think we actually had it short for this year based on, I think that there's only 1 employee that has insurance, and we under budgeted this year. So that's why that's a little higher based on what it truly will cost this year, and 3% for any increases. And we left the $350 in there for other capital outlays, the same as last year. That's for any, I believe that's downtown improvements. Isn't that what the Johnson County edit was for? So that's to be used for anything that to do downtown.
We were supposed to ask, give suggestions for that, I think, weren't we?
Yeah.
What and 2 employees, does that pay for it?
The economic development director and the planning commissioner. Or planning director, I'm sorry, not commissioner, but planning director. The Bartholomew County edit, I decreased that one, and I should have probably talked to Daniel because I know you used some of that for some of your stuff. But I know we haven't had a lot of expenses out of capital outlays this year, so I did a drop in that. That pays for the community center downtown, that covers their utilities, their phone bill, and any miscellaneous supplies they may need. And like I said, the capital outlays, what we had budgeted for this year, we have not used. I don't know, did you have any plans for that? I just realized I did not confer with you on this. Was there anything you had in mind to use that for?
For this year?
Both. I know you could come up with something, but, you know, just, I did a decrease on that, just because there hadn't been anything spent this year. And,
Typically in the past, that budget has just been, it's whatever the operational costs are, like the utilities and the office supplies, things like that, whatever cash balance was remaining was budgeted as a capital outlay. So it was really just what funds were going to do. Yeah, it was what was going to be available.
Okay.
We utilize that to buy that tour.
okay. Yeah, so if there is something that you can look at this a little deeper and we may, that might change when I bring it back to you guys for the final approval. We'll have a discussion, Danielle. I'm sorry, I just realized I totally left you out on that.
And you still have plenty of time for any changes. Your Form 3 is not really until August 29th.
Okay.
We've got plenty of time.
Okay,
It just rolls over. It's a non-reverting time.
The Bartholomew County, yeah, it rolls to itself. Yeah. So if there's any unspent, it's just going to stay in that Bartholomew County.
Right. so, but if we left it at this, then we could ask for additional appropriations if needed, right? Okay. Next is the CCIF. We left that the same. That's,
Comes from cigarette tax. Again, it's just been used as kind of a capital outlay. It's never really had a specific purpose. It's kind of for if something pops up and needs to be paid for, that's where it comes from. It doesn't bring in a ton of money on an annual basis, but it does have a pretty healthy cash balance and it actually that's a cash flow that now actually has pretty good cash flow, which is why it has such a what's the budget line? Is it
10,000.
10,000? Yeah, so it's got, it's got some cash flow stat in it for quite a few years that hasn't reached that. I think typically maybe some software was paid from there, some of the maintenance fees on the software and the.
And I think our website,
Website.
it can be used, and it can be used for computer replacements.
It can be used for anything. It's basically as free as the general fund. But again, it doesn't bring in a ton of money. It's possible that it could increase because the cigarette tax went up. With this legislation, I think it went to $2.99 a pack, maybe, so it's possible that it could generate some
And then next is the CCDF. Left that the same. That's same type thing. It's just a,
Yes, the name is cumulative capital development, so it kind of has a misnomer. It really can be used for any lawful purpose. It can be used for operations, but again, typically it's used for capital or development, things like that. So yeah, it can be used for anything, but again, it doesn't bring in a ton of money at the time. I think it's like $30,000 a year that it's spending in right now. The council does have the option to reestablish that CCD fund in any year. You have to do it before May 31st of the year. You can reestablish that up to 5 cents. I think currently you're about half that, maybe 2.3 cents, something like that. So you can reestablish it outside your maximum levy limits. So anything that you increase comes directly off of your net assessed value. So if you have an increase in your net assessed value, you're going to have an increase in the revenues that you bring in your CCD. So it's just going to be a flat, right now it's going to be a flat 2.3 cents on your net assessed value. If you were to reestablish, it would be 5 cents, or you can go up to 5 cents. So essentially whatever you're bringing in now, if you were to reestablish, it would bring in about double that. So I think it's about $60,000 that you could generate on that.
And that's one of the funds that I thought could be used towards, the purchase of equipment for the street department.
Yeah, that was on that.
Mhm. So, next, I've got the riverboat revenue sharing, and that's just basically what it says. I decreased that from 90 down to 35, with anticipation of using up to 90,000 of that on new equipment. So that's one that could be used. So, we could just about pay for a dump truck between those two funds.
Mhm.
If that's the decision, if that's what the council decides. So that's why I lowered that, because if we use those funds, then we're not gonna have those funds to have a higher budget. So, and I think that's all I've got. Other than Mr. Scott will do a,
Yeah, so if we want to talk briefly about the cash flows that we prepared, and I apologize while I was standing there, my computer went to sleep.
you don't have a PowerPoint, correct?
I don't, but it's just the PDF that I sent you if you do want to bring it up. The PDF from that email I sent, I think, on Friday. So the cash flows that you have there, you should have 4 pages that all look pretty similar. They've got a couple blue and green lines on them. The first 2 pages are going to be the preliminary overview of the remaining 2025 budget. So that's going to be what's left from July 1 to December 31 of 2025. The second 2 pages are going to be the preliminary overview of the 2026 budget. So that's everything that you kind of just talked about today, as far as the revenues that we talked about at the last meeting, and then the expenses that we talked about today. That's going to encompass those. So it's kind of hard to see up there anyway, but hopefully you can see it a little bit better on your paper. But just to kind of walk you through how this looks, the top line there is going to be your funds. So you'll see we have the different funds: general fund, local road street, MVH, park and rec. We have all those on that first page. It does roll over onto the second page, and we have some of those other funds as well. Down the left-hand side, above the blue line, you'll see we have the budgeted receipts. That's going to be all the different types of budgeted receipts that you're going to bring in annually. So you'll see when you look at this page, it looks a little funny because each of those funds usually only has 1 receipt. But since the general fund has a lot of different receipts, it has a little more activity in it. Back to that. And then as you get down to the second blue line, the first blue line is going to be your total budgeted receipts for the remainder of the year. The second section there is going to be your budgeted disbursements, which is broken down by the 4 categories of personal services, supplies, services and charges, capital outlays, and then you also have your debt service because we have your GO bond there. We still have your rainy day transfer line item in there from last year, although that hasn't been decided whether a rainy day transfer is going to be done for this year. The green line there is going to be your change in fund balance. So if that number is negative, it means that you are going to decrease your cash balance for the remainder of the year. If that number is positive, it means you're going to add money to the cash balance. And then the bottom, a little bit darker blue line is your estimated ending balance. So if we look at your general fund for the remainder of 2025, that's going to be your first column there. You'll see we're estimating that you're going to bring in $741,000 in property taxes for the remainder of the year. And then your certified shares for the remainder of the year are going to be 1.3 million. And then you have also your miscellaneous receipts through there, which aren't as large. But ultimately, that's going to get you to 2.3 million for the remainder of the year. Looking at your total budgeted disbursements, what we're looking at there is what would happen if you were to spend the entire amount of your 2025 budget. So we took your total budget approved for 2025, less what was spent in the first 6 months, which gives us the 2.8 million in budgeted disbursements. So if you spend all of that budget, you are going to decrease the cash balance by about $500,000, and you will end the year with about $4 million. You see that down there on the bottom line. So I won't walk through all of these for the 2025 budget, but if you want to kind of look through there, you can kind of see all of your budgeted funds this year are expected to end with a positive balance. So that's good. The ones that have a lower balance in there are the ones that typically have been used for capital. So you've budgeted all of the cash that's available. Are you actually going to spend it? Probably not. If you do, that's what the remaining cash balance would be. So let's kind of get into the meat on the third page of the 2026 budget. So this is going to encompass all of the different funds that we just talked about. I know we talked about police and fire at the last meeting, so it'll encompass that as well. I believe I have the most up-to-date numbers in here. They are still subject to change if there's any budget changes. I know we mentioned the Park and Rec made the option B. We may change that slightly. So keep that in mind. These are preliminary, so it is subject to change just based on those budgeted numbers. But let's look at the general fund. It's going to be your biggest fund again there, that first column there. So you'll see for 2026, it looks a little bit different because we've included the circuit breaker tax credits and the estimated SVA 1 losses on there. So we are estimating for the general fund that the circuit breaker losses will be $823,800. That's based on a percentage of the previous year's circuit breakers. And the estimated SEA losses are straight from the LSA report, as we still don't have any better numbers at this point. Hopefully, again, we have those in the next, hopefully, month or so, and we can plug your numbers in and maybe get a little bit better estimates on what those SEA losses are. But we've allocated those SEA losses to each one of your funds that will get property taxes. So for the town of Edinburgh, it's general fund, MBH, Parks and Recreation, CCD, and debt service. So we've allocated those funds accordingly, or those losses accordingly, I'm sorry. There is a little bit of confusion at this point on where the debt service losses are going to, how those debt service losses are going to be calculated, because right now when you have a debt service that's not subject to the same circuit breakers that the other funds are, it's only subject to the over 65 circuit breaker. So this circuit breaker, or the estimated SEA losses on your debt service here is probably going to be a lot higher than what you're going to see. So it's possible that the debt service SEA losses may move to some of your other funds, your or your MBH, your general fund, and your Parks and Rec. So that 11,000 that's there, it may actually be eaten up between those other three funds rather than going to that debt service. So once we get a better estimate on that, we can allocate that accordingly. But it won't be a huge change. It's just $11,000, so it won't change the cash flows of them. So with that, in the general fund, net property taxes this year are estimated to be 1.642 million. You'll see we have we've flatlined currently the certified shares from 2025, so we're looking at 2.6 million. That report for 2026 certified should be out this month. So once that report comes out from the DLGF, we can plug that number in here. We do expect it should be a little bit of an increase, just based on historical. But at this point, we've flatlined that just to be conservative. So looking down at the total budgeted receipts for 2026, you're looking at 5.1 million. So as I mentioned when I presented the revenue estimates at the last meeting, if we were aiming for a perfectly balanced budget, that 5.1 million would be what we would be looking to spend in our disbursements for the year. So everything that was presented last meeting and this meeting that is in the general fund totaled 5.836 million. So that puts the general fund at a deficit of 734,000. Of that, 277,000 is capital outlays, which typically is going to be a non-recurring expense. Now, I know sometimes those capital outlays are recurring, sometimes the police cars that you flip on a regular basis, but typically your capital outlays are going to be non-recurring. So if you pull the capital outlays out of there, your actual change in fund balance of your operating would be about $500,000. So that's kind of the deficit that you're looking at in operations. So if you were to, again, spend all of 2025 budget, bring in this amount of revenue and spend all of 2026 budget, you would eat into your cash balance by $734,000, leaving you with an estimated ending balance of $3.3 million. You will notice on the 2026 cash flows, we do have an orange line at the bottom. That's your operating balance. So that operating balance is going to be based on your ending cash balance as a percentage of your budgeted disbursements. So you'll see you would still end with a 56.5% operating balance, even with the deficit that you're sitting at this time. So that's still above the recommended operating balance or the guardrails that we consider the 15% minimum and the 50% max. So you are still sitting at a good operating balance. But if the budgets and spending would continue like that after a couple years, that operating balance would quickly fall down to the 15%, and then eventually would fall to a negative. So it's just something you want to keep an eye on. Again, typically Edinburgh has not been a spend all of their budget town. So these numbers again are going to assume that all of that is spent, but it doesn't concern me a whole lot just because I know that you won't probably spend the rest of your general fund budget at the end of this year, and you probably won't spend all of the budget that you'll approve for 2026. Some other funds to look at here are we talked about kind of the local roads and streets. So you'll see with the local roads and street, the budget that was presented to you, I think was $150,000 total. You'll see that is a budget deficit of $41,000, but it still leaves you with $119,000 in the cash balance and an 80% operating balance. And again, that's typically used for capital outlays and other services and charges. So pretty healthy balance there. Your motor vehicle highway, which for the purposes of this cash flow does include both your MVH and your MVH restricted fund, you will see that it has total budgeted receipts of $1.03 million and total budgeted disbursements of $1.34 million. So again, $300,000 deficit there would end with a $827,000 cash balance at the end of 2026, which is a 61% operating balance. Again, similar to the general fund, you're eating into that cash balance if you spend all of the money, but still have a good cash balance at the end of the year. And again, a lot of that budget is capital outlays because it's used for infrastructure and things of that nature. So if it came down to this budget needing to be cut, it would just be we have to do less road work. I mean, that would be the cut that you would make from the MVH fund. For the Parks and Recreation, total budgeted receipts $880,000. Total budgeted disbursements, as presented by Daniel earlier, are almost exactly $1 million. So a deficit of $120,000, still leaving an operating balance of 50%. Debt service we won't talk about, that's just going to be based on the amortization schedule. CCI, we talked about the $10,000. That is using essentially all of the cash balance there. That's not leaving any operating balance. It's not an operating fund. It doesn't need an operating balance. You can spend those down, and then you would just have to replenish those over the course of several years, because again, it does not bring in a ton of money, about $7,500 a year. So if you wanted to spend those on capital, you probably build those up over the course of several years and then spend them all down again. CCD, budgeting $110,000. Has not been typically used as an operating budget for the town. Could handle operations if you wanted, but right now we've got it budgeted at $110,000 for capital outlays, which does eat into the cash balance by $72,000, but does leave 28% operating balance in there if you did need those funds. On the next page, these are a lot of your funds that, like I said, are just budgeted based on the cash flow that you have. So your casino riverboat, you bring in $23,000 a year. You're budgeting, this year's 35,000, but essentially, if you were to spend all of that, you're going to end up just being able to spend about that $22,000 a year. Or again, you can build those cash balances up and then spend them over the 1 year and then build them back up over the course of several years. Shelby County edit, similar to that one, but again, a healthy operating balance in there if you did need to use it. Bartholomew County edit is in about the same boat this year. I think it's being budgeted to spend almost every penny of it. There are capital outlays of $30,000 that are budgeted in there, so if you were to spend all those capital outlays, you would spend it down to zero. The Park and Rec and RO, right now budgeted at $334,000 for receipts and $400,000 at disbursements. Again, as Daniel talked about, there's possibility that you can just decrease those disbursements a little bit based on kind of the things that have happened over the last few months. So essentially, like Daniel said, if those receipts don't come in, the expenses aren't being paid because they're not going to just have people standing out there to stand out there. So again, that's just kind of a non-reverting operating that funds itself. It's always been very self-sufficient. Daniel's done a good job of managing that budget for a lot of years, and like I said, spends as it comes in. Your public safety and your Johnson County edit, those are two of your bigger edit local income tax funds that come in. For public safety, in here we don't have a budget, but essentially because it's used typically for capital outlays, you could budget up to $188,000 for 2026. If you wanted to move that to an operational budget, you could fund about $80,000 of operations out of there. And then Johnson County edit, we talked about briefly. It's bringing in about $400,000 a year. It has about $350,000 of capital outlays budgeted. So other than that, the operational side of it is only about $189,000. So you're not eating in with operations. You're not eating that cash balance. It's just the capital outlays. So again, just want to mention while we're looking at these edit funds, 2028, those are going away. Will be replaced with just that one lit that the town has the opportunity to pass. So anything that's covered, any disbursements that are covered in those funds will have to be moved to the general fund once those cash balances are depleted. You can continue to spend from them after the lit structure is gone and they're not bringing in revenues, but obviously they're not bringing in revenues, so eventually you'll deplete them, and then the expenses will have to be covered through the general fund. So once we get a little closer to that time, we'll want to look at what those revenues are going to be for the lit municipal lit, and what expenses you're going to have to cover operationally to make sure that you're bringing in enough to cover those operations. Any questions on those cash flows? None of the funds have any concerns aside from there are several funds that are at a deficit. I guess the biggest concern would be the general fund, just because the majority of it is operational and it is at a deficit. Again, probably not going to spend it all, but as far as operating balance by the end of 2026, everything's still looking nice and healthy, and I don't expect anything different. That's how it's been for a lot of years. The town has been very good at cash management. When if revenues come in less than what are expected, then spending seems to come down and kind of match that. So,
Scott, can you touch a little bit on the Shelby County Racino?
Shelby County Racino, yeah, we did throw that into the budget this year just because, similar to the Shelby County edit, it brings in, about $18,000 a year. To my knowledge, it has the same restrictions as Riverboat, which is not very many restrictions. It can really be used for about anything. So you have a cash balance in there you have an estimated cash balance at the end of 2025 of $238,000. So there is a good chunk of change that's been sitting in there. I don't know that this fund has ever been used for anything large. There may have been some small
I don't know
charges.
that it's ever been used ever.
It maybe has never been touched. So now you have the benefit of, you do have a $238,000 cash balance that can be used for, the best of my knowledge, the same thing as you could use a riverboat for. So it does only bring in, like I said, $18,000 a year. But
That's one of those funds for the street department.
As a potential.
yeah, it could be used for anything like that, any of those one-time costs. But again, if you spend that $238,000, it's going to take you several years again to build those
To build that
funds
back
back up.
Because it's only 18,000 a year,
Yeah.
so.
So if it was probably less than that, so it's probably been sitting there for over a decade with no activity coming from it. So it's good that it's there now and you can use it for some of those capital purchases.
Thank you. Really explained it well. Thank
Sure.
you.
And if, like I said, if anything comes up, you see anything on those reports that looks off or weird, feel free to reach out, send us a message, and we'll see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. Revenues right now seem like they're in a good place. They could change slightly as things change throughout the budget process. I'll be in close touch with Rhonda. If any of the budget Form 1 estimates change, we'll throw those into our spreadsheet. That way these cash flows update. Once this is all set up, it's pretty easy. If you say, hey, we'd love to make a one-time capital purchase, we can throw them into these cash flows and it'll let you know if you can fund it over the next couple of years. So next step, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is going to be your Form 3. You are ahead of the game right now, I feel. Like I said, I think it's August 29th is when your Form 3, it's 10 days prior to your public hearing, and I want to say your public hearing is on the 9th, it's the second Monday in September. So we've got plenty of time. We have all of the information now that we could submit your Form 3. We don't need to because we've got the time, but all of the information is there. We just have to click a couple buttons and submit it. It doesn't have to be put into the newspaper anymore. It's just submitted through Gateway. So it's a pretty quick process. But we'll be working with Rhonda just to make sure that that does get submitted on time. It doesn't push your budget back because of where your budget is, because it's, early September is when you're adopting. If something were to happen, if there were an error with the Form 3 or anything like that, you do have plenty of time that you could push your budget back, even just 2 weeks, and you would still have plenty of time because November 1st is the deadline to adopt a budget. And historically, the town usually adopts in September, so you've got ample time to do that. So, like I said, reach out with any questions and we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very
And
much.
our next budget workshop is scheduled for the 25th. So if there's any questions, any changes,
August 25th.
anything that you want any more information on, just let me know. And if the department heads change anything, I'll let you know. I think that's,
I appreciate everybody's hard work on this. Rhonda, John, all the department heads, Scott. Takes a lot of hard work to do all this, and we're all aware of that. Do you have anything else to add, Rhonda, as far as
I do not.
John? Do you have anything else to add as far as going over anything with the budget? Any of the department heads have anything else they'd like to add? I think you all did a great job, and two new gentlemen, Daniel, you set the president's forum, you let them out, and I think you did a good job with that, so they did as well. Any other business? Okay. Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Everyone, thank you for attending tonight.